Hello, I'm very thankful for the opportunity that we have today Katia Kolovea here for the lighting course at the University of Wuppertal. And she is a very creative mind. I met her some time ago. And what I really like about her work is that she's paying a lot of attention to the meaning of light, actually. So not only to see something, but actually to ask what's the meaning, what could light symbolize. She studied at the Katia Royal Institute of Technology, did her master's in lighting design, and then she worked in a company where she concentrated on projects from stage lighting to events, working on corporate brand presentations and even some kind of art installations. And then her work was already recognized as very creative and talented. For that reason, she received the Young Lighter of the Year competition by the British Society of Light and Lighting. And a year later, she received the Under 40 award from the Lighting Design Awards in London. She is founder of the studio Archiforce, and this platform is interested in storytelling with light. So if you're thinking about any creative project where you would like to say something with light, then she will be the perfect person. Today, she will talk about light as a medium to enhance communication in urban spaces. And I think she will capture many different projects from different worlds and will give you an understanding about what is important when you think to use light as a medium to enhance communication in urban spaces. So, Katia, thank you very much, and the stage is yours.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you, everyone, for being here today, this morning. We're going to talk about light as a medium to enhance communication in urban spaces, as Thomas just mentioned. But before we start, let's understand what we mean by communication through light. And I wonder what you can remember and what emotions and memories do you link with light? Is it a personal moment when you make a wish and blow your candles? Is it a cultural event like Diwali? Or this magical moment when light immerses you into a parallel world? And I'm sure that right now you have many different examples in your minds. And I would like to ask you to concentrate in the urban spaces. And when I say urban space, I mean anything from big cities to small towns. I would like you to think, when was the last time that you found yourself in an urban space and light communicated a message to you? Was it intentional or it just happened by chance? What message did it bring? Was it a message of hope, of joy, of togetherness, like Christmas lights? Was it a message of celebration? A combination of sound and bright lights in the sky like fireworks? Was it a visual cacophony of colorful advertisements in the urban space? Or just the traffic lights inviting you to stop or cross the street? Today, we will discover together how light can powerfully inspire people to unite, engage, and take action in the urban space. And our focal points will be on sociopolitical, environmental, and health issues. And this has been my challenge and my research. And as most of you are passionate about light, for the next few minutes, I would like this idea of inspiring people to take action through light to become your challenge as well, our challenge. So let's start. In recent years, we have been going through a period of social, environmental, and political turmoil as never before. Air and water pollution, global warming, terrorism, racism, infectious diseases are just some examples of the issues we have to face. Municipalities, non-governmental organizations, and individuals are now finding different means and actions to achieve change and create awareness. Actions like street demonstrations, conventions, artistic collaborations, which intend to inspire the global and local communities to unite and take action. Today, we are living in the era of technology, where the internet, interactive multimedia, smartphones, and generally all kinds of technological developments play a dominant role in everyday life. Static printed images, such as posters, are no longer able to convey powerful messages when people are used to vibrant screens and fast visual changes. So new ways must be developed in order to communicate social messages, raise awareness, and motivate people to progress and achieve change. And the question here is whether we could inspire the global community to engage and take action for the future of the world through light. And if so, how? The methodology which led to the completion of this research is divided in 4 steps. The presentation is a condensed version of this research, and if you're interested, of course, I can provide you more information on the extended project. The first step of the methodology is the theory, and I'm not going to go now into details, but I'm just going to mention the sections that we studied in order to deliver this research. So first, we have science, which explains how light triggers the brain and the behavioral responses. Next is linked with eligibility, with visual communication, perception, and the humanistic approach of the urban environment by Kevin Lynch and Jane Jacobs. Then we studied about communication theory and media. And then we had activism. Number 5 is social engagement. And finally, lighting characteristics and tools. The next step is a selection of examples. So there has been a multitude of temporary installations all over the world in which light is used as a medium to achieve visual impact and get a message across. So in the next step, we picked 6 projects from this list and we named them as case studies. Let's have a look at the case studies. In the first project, We Live Here 2017 in Australia, close to 5,000 people refused to be relocated, and so they used light to protest and make a statement against the forced relocation and insecurity. In the second example, it's a festival project in London. Light is a medium of interaction between the citizens, the festival visitors, and the building itself. Light here starts a sociopolitical conversation in the urban space by altering the appearance of the building according to the public responses. The 9/11 Tribute in Light is a monumental project, a commemorative public installation where light mimics the position and the shape of the Twin Towers, which were destroyed in 2001. Light here is used as a medium to show compassion and solidarity. In the fourth project, Projecting Change in 2015 in New York, light is used to draw attention to endangered animals. By creating a dynamic visual performance on the facade of the Empire State Building, the designers intended to inspire thousands of people with the world's biggest projected billboard and actually invite them to unite and protect the planet with their actions. I hope that the video is playing. I guess so. If not, Thomas, let me know.
It's working, yes, thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna just... I really like this project. I think the impact is very, very strong. Let's go to the next one. So the next case study is an action with no light at all. It's a symbolic blackout when the power on famous landmarks all over the world is turned off for 1 hour to highlight the importance of global warming and create awareness for the protection of the environment. Finally, in the last and 6th project, Autism Speaks organization uses blue lights on landmarks and private buildings to increase understanding and acceptance for people with autism all over the world. So now let's move to the next chapter of the methodology, which is called the qualitative interviews, the experts interviews. The people I interviewed have very different backgrounds, and for this reason, they are categorized in 3 groups: politicians and social activists, lighting designers and researchers, and the 6 selected project creators that we just had a look at the case study section. Amongst the people I interviewed were the US lighting designer, Lenny Squendinger, Autism Speaks organization, and especially Nikos Haralambidis, who is the director of Greenpeace in Greece, who particularly touched me with his words. So as you can read here, he said, "Light breaks the darkness and transmits a bright message, both literally and metaphorically, even if this message is using a nuclear reactor as a canvas." And here in the Netherlands, you have a very good example of this, when Greenpeace projected an inspired graffiti based on the famous painting The Scream by Edvard Munch into the Borssele nuclear power station. So the next chapter is a discussion. And by merging the experts' valuable contribution with the theoretical research and the analysis of the 6 case studies, we can now move on to the discussion chapter. And the discussion chapter is divided in 12 categories and critically evaluates findings. But due to the limited presentation time and substantial length of this chapter, only 5 out of the 12 were selected to be presented. The 5 selected categories are color symbolism, tools comparison, same message, different installation, the Empire State Building and landmarks, and finally propaganda. Let's start with the first one. The first category is color symbolism. The concept of lighting something in a specific color is universally understood, and we can argue that color light makes an immediate and highly visible impact. And here we see different occasions where the color blue is used to light up landmarks. And you might think that all of those examples are expressing the same message and they are communicating the same message. We already saw the examples from the Autism Awareness Light It Up Blue campaign. But all of those examples are using the same color blue by communicating completely different messages. For example, the Eiffel Tower turns blue to celebrate the French presidency of the European Union. The Basilica Sagrada Familia turns blue to create awareness for autism. The London Eye turns blue to create awareness for the Diabetes Day. And then here we see the same building, the Empire State Building, turns blue to celebrate the anniversary of a university. And on the right, the same building turns blue to celebrate the Barack Obama victory. So it seems that using a specific color light is not enough to communicate a message. It is necessary to have further information about the general context of the message, such as common cultural references and knowledge regarding the event. And here we can see the London Eye in blue following a text project. On the right, you can see the projection. So we have the monument, and then we have also text projection in bold blue capital letters, encouraging people to understand diabetes and follow the warning signs. Sometimes colors do carry information. For example, the colors of a specific flag represents a country. In this way, colored lights can become a symbolic representation of a particular country. But taking into consideration the cultural differences, I'm wondering how we can talk about global events where color light symbolizes a specific message. Why do we link green light with the environment, pink with cancer awareness, and red with AIDS awareness? What are the criteria of the color light selection? Who decides what the global colors will be? It seems that we might confuse people by using the same colors for completely different occasions. Let's move now to the next category. Tools comparison between light and traditional media. There are similarities and differences. Light is flexible and transformable, which means that it can change size, shape, color, and transform its message very fast. Compared to printed material, like banners and posters, it doesn't stir or flutter and cannot be destroyed because of the wind or other climate conditions. Light is a low-cost, sustainable, environmental friendly, and ephemeral medium that can create a strong visual impact and transmit a message without permanently affecting a facade compared to graffiti. And even though it is temporary, it can stay in people's minds for a long time. Light can create new opportunities for public engagement through social media and interactive technologies. Light is a peaceful way of protest compared to demonstrations, which can lead to police engagement. For example, here on the left, we have a 1-hour holographic demonstration in Madrid in response to a 2014 Spanish law, which banned protesting in front of government buildings. Light is able to create a surprise effect to the observer. It can be very impressive depending on its content, rhythm, brightness, intensity, and other lighting characteristics. Generally, we need to consider how both traditional media and light can work together on different times of the day to combine strong and impactful messages. And I'm saying that because the context is very, very important. There are environments like Times Square, Piccadilly Circus, places in Tokyo, where light can be considered as visual noise. Like here, for example, in New York. So again, the combination of both traditional media and light should work together and create impact. Next category. Same message, different installation. The next 3 installations are transmitting the same message, creating awareness about AIDS. In the first project, we have a red ribbon contrasted with blue UV light in the indoor space of a clinic in Athens. In the middle one, we have the City Hall of San Francisco turns red to create awareness for AIDS. And in the last project, the designers used mapping projection to present a movable, bright message with blue capital letters. This last one uses direct communication strategy as opposed to the previous 2 examples because they are using the actual word AIDS in their projection. It is very interesting to observe the different outcomes that different designers achieve by using light as a medium in a diversity of forms and combinations. The fourth category is the Empire State Building and landmarks. From the case study chapter, all the experts that I interviewed confirmed the importance of landmarks in the urban space in order to create impact. They called them buildings with meaning. So those are the buildings that communicate history and orientation in the city among other buildings. Oceanic Preservation Society, during our interview, told me that people need to already feel a connection and admiration to the building to really get their attention. In New York, the Empire State Building tower lights have maintained the tradition of changing color to recognize various occasions and organizations throughout the year. They have created a lighting calendar, which is obviously a very a very effective advertising tool for the landmark, but also for the organizations that are turning into lighting partners for one day. And here we can see in the middle 2 examples of the lighting calendar lights, the celebration of the LGBT community and the pink one for the International Women's Day on the 8th of March. We have the information that in 2019, the Empire State Building had 116 lighting calendar events. So you can imagine every night of those specific events, the colors of the Empire State Building, they were changing to communicate a specific message. Also, the Empire State Building is used for mapping projection, like the live visual results from the presidency elections in the USA in 2016, and the mapping projection for the endangered animals by Oceanic Preservation Society that we had a look at the video earlier on the case studies. So the question, again, is if the world followed the Empire State Building lighting calendar example, do you think that it would be beneficial for more landmarks all over the world to use the same strategy to communicate sociopolitical, environmental, and health messages? For example, here in London, we all have seen the London Eye in different colors. It seems that it would be valuable if more landmarks in the urban space had the possibility to communicate and transmit temporary sociopolitical, health, and environmental messages. But again, the question, and something that I would like you to think, and maybe share it with us in the comments later, is what can the lighting designers do to initiate this conversation? It is definitely not just about the color. We have many tools. We have rhythm. We're going to see later a couple of more characteristics of the tools that we have as designers. So I would like you to think creatively how we can initiate this conversation and transmit messages. Flashing lights, changing colors, changing rhythm, intensities, create a storytelling of the event that we want to create awareness. Let's move to the last category, which is propaganda. So the last category evaluates the use of light in propaganda. It's beyond the scope of this section to analyze in depth the term propaganda and its uses in the global society, but we can present a relevant historical example of the use of light for this purpose. The use of light can also be noted in other political actions with the main intention to control, exploit, and spread ideologies. This example is the Cathedral of Light, or Lichtung, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, for the Hitler Nazi Party in Nuremberg in 1937, where the light is a symbol of power. And here I would like to share a quote from an attendee of those events. People were brought to Nuremberg from all over Germany to witness the spectacle of military and social power and greatness. Grand speeches, columns of tanks and soldiers in the best uniforms, music and practiced recitation, all saturated in the myth of Germany's superiority and greatness. Jason Stanley, in his book, How Propaganda Works, says that propaganda emotionalizes facts and ignores critical thinking. We can argue that the use of light also may emotionalizes facts. So this could lead to the question, in which extent light can turn into propaganda. Here, light is used to make a very strong political statement. In this recent example from 2017, when Donald Trump announced the United States recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and ordered the planning of the relocation of the US Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So, as we describe and emphasize the communication force of the light, we need to critically consider that the light installations has the power to evoke strong and polarized emotions. Following the discussion, and just before we go to the COVID-19 section and the conclusion, we're going to talk about the development of this research and the creation of what I call the RECCE model. By observing all of those worldwide projects which are using light as a medium to enhance specific messages in the urban space, we can identify them in the ones that are very strong and powerful and in the ones that are not. The intention to continue this research was to develop a series of parameters in order to accomplish the purpose of truly communication of a message and the creation of a strong reaction between the participants. But what is RECCE and why is it called like that? So RECCE is an acronym, and we have R for rhythm, E for environmental context, C for composition, C for collaboration, and E for engagement. And RECCE has a double meaning. It is a production term which refers to a pre-filming visit by the director of photography to a location to determine its suitability for shooting. So here, in a more metaphorical way, those 5 parameters will be the foundation for an impactful lighting installation. Let's start to analyze those 5 characteristics. We're going to start with rhythm and frequency, and that refers to how often a specific light installation takes place throughout the year. For example, here on the left, we have the Tribute in Light, which is an annually repeating installation, which has created a feeling of anticipation to New York citizens. What happened is something that we'll never forget. And light represents the ghost towers, and it is there every year to commemorate and symbolize the loss of life. But what if this installation was happening every single night? Do you think that it would be as impactful? Let's see the image on the right. A one-off project by the social activist group Illuminators, who are using light projection as a tool to make political statements, to protest and to raise awareness. This was their very first action. It was a dynamic projection in the Verizon building, followed by a night protest, strong enough to bring people together and inspire them to engage and take action. Just imagine on this projection, they were counting from 3, 2, 1, and they were projecting messages to engage people and let them know that to participate on the future demonstrations that they were planning. And as you can see here, the sign, it says, "We are all sitting ducks," and people are participating by taking pictures and sharing them later online. So generally people must be surprised in order to remember a specific event. If an installation is yearly repetitive, it should have a strong effect and or an unforgettable visual content that will be able to captivate the attention every single time. So content here is very important as well. Next one, the next characteristic in our RECCE model is the environmental context. And maybe this is the most important parameter. For example, here on the left, the Lowry Bridge in Minnesota. Light is used as a medium to create awareness for equality and the LGBT community. And I'm wondering, and I would like you to think about it as well, how this rainbow would make a strong impact in Times Square in New York City, where the lights are considered as visual noise. How would it be even possible? I'd like you to think about that. I will be really interested to have some discussion in the end. So let's consider this comparison and understand how the context is very, very important to communicate a message without allowing the message to be lost. Here in Australia, as we discussed before on the case studies, the lights communicating to the outside world that people are living inside the buildings and remind the government of their duty to protect them. Those two towers have turned into a lighting sculpture, and the environmental context of this installation has a unique meaning, since this building doesn't exist anymore. On the right image, we see with bright blue capital letters, Occupy Wall Street. It's another projection from the illuminators that we saw before on the previous slides. The placement of the projection, the intensity, and the overall ambient lighting defines how impactful the message will be. And finally, here in New York, we see a mapping projection between some skyscrapers. Take a few seconds and think, is this impactful? And if so, why? Personally, I believe that the green color indeed catches your attention, but at the same time, compared to all the previous examples on this that we saw, on this environment with the specific lights of the building on, I just feel that the projection content is quite weak. We can't really see what is the message and what is the communication. Of course, I haven't experienced this project in person. I wasn't there. This is a picture from a video. So this is just my personal opinion, that I believe that this projection would be more impactful if the lights of the building that the projection is happening, they would be turned off. But I would like to listen also to your opinion in the end of the session. So let's move on the next parameter, which is composition. And we as lighting designers, we have various tools to use in order to create and compose a lighting installation. The design thinking and the design process also differs between us, always differs between us. And actually that's a beautiful part of our job. But we have the same tools to use in our installations. We have vibrant or not colors. We have motion and dynamic changes, intensity. We can create different patterns, use rhythm and programming to achieve impact. We also have variations on sequences and contrast. We can create focal points. And very importantly, we can use different images to project or visualize content in a realistic or in a more abstract way. And let's see here some examples. There are always different ways to do things. For example, here we see some comparisons for 3 characteristics. On the top left, we see the designer using a tree image in a very artistic way, creating an installation with multiple overlapping trees. While on the bottom left example, we see a literal projection of 2 parrots on the building. With the middle examples, we can see 2 different projects with different intensities. With the top middle, you might not be able to read the message, where the designers have chosen to use very thin and low intensity font to project the message, compared to the bottom middle, where we have a very bright and clear, bold message. And on the right, there is no need to describe again the color category because we analyzed it earlier, but there are unlimited colors, and depending on the context, the project, and the message, colored light can be integrated into the installation. Next one, we have collaboration and contribution between the designers, the participants, and the final outcome of the installation. Collaboration is a key parameter in order to create an impactful and memorable installation. You might have seen this project. Here on the right, WWF created a collaborative experience for all the participants who gathered in front of the Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. And they gathered there to celebrate the Earth Hour, where, as we said before, people and municipalities are turning off the non-essential lights for 1 hour. And here we can see how they came together, collaborated, and wrote "Save Our Climate Now" by using paper bags with a candle inside. Creating a sense of community around an installation and an event is very, very important. In the words of Vanessa Lim Singh, the digital engagement specialist from WWF, she said, "Social media is key for Earth Hour, as it's the fastest and most effective way to reach new audiences with the help of our supporters. Every post, every hashtag, and every tweet helps us spreading the hashtag Change Climate Change movement to every corner in the world." The power of social media is very, very important as well, because most of those installations, I haven't personally experienced them, but by analyze them and observe them and imagine that we are actually experiencing that, we can feel the message, we can feel and understand why they're raising awareness for the particular topics. So the power of social media is very important to share and reach every corner of the world. And lastly, engagement. Here in the engagement, I would like to highlight one of my favorite projects, One Heart, One Tree by Naziha Mestawi. This last project perfectly illustrates the findings of this research. It really maximizes the level of public engagement through a lighting mapping installation and finds a way to connect the virtual world to the real one. People were asked to record their heartbeat, send it through an application, and see their virtual tree projected on the Eiffel Tower actually growing at the pace of their heartbeat. The special characteristic of this project is that every single virtual tree was planted in a reforestation program, which took place in 5 continents, and it's growing in real life right now. Okay, so COVID-19 is a new chapter on my research, collecting some of the global actions in response to the global pandemic. Countless countries around the world are using light as a medium to create powerful images of hope and solidarity. Governments, municipalities, and individuals are standing together, expressing respect, gratitude, and support to the healthcare workers on the front line, and sending messages of empathy to those affected by the coronavirus. There are lighting installations on famous landmarks, mountains, private buildings, media facades, using combinations of colored lights to project messages, images, and symbols to encourage people to stay strong and stay home. These are followed by the hashtags, actually. Hashtag stay strong and hashtag stay home. I'm sure that if you're going to search about it, you're going to find many different images from all around the world. So, firstly, the Brazil's famous Christ, the Redeemer statue, I hope I'm pronouncing that well, was illuminated with the flags of various international countries impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, the Brazilian landmark displayed messages for health workers, asking people to remain home, and hashtag again, recemos juntos, which means pray together. Next, we have two examples in London using blue light to support the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK, that is working tirelessly for us all during this very challenging period. On the left, we have the shopping mall Selfridges in the middle of London. And on the right, we have the Charing Cross railway station. Next, in Paris, the Eiffel Tower is used as a canvas to express gratitude to the healthcare heroes who remain mobilized in the fight against COVID-19 and encourage people to stay at home to protect themselves and the others around them. The Azadi Tower, a landmark monument in the Iranian capital of Tehran, held a video mapping event, and it was lit as a part of a ceremony expressing sympathy and showing support for people around the world in the face of the novel coronavirus outbreak. The pyramid in Egypt lights up to call on public to stay home amid coronavirus outbreak and express gratitude to the people on the first line. Stay home. Thank you to those for keeping us safe. Here we can see a kind of different approach. We can see a global movement where many hotels all around the world have turned on the lights of the guest rooms at night. And those lights are forming messages, not the lights, the actual rooms are forming messages of encouragement and hope. Whether the illuminations are in the shape of a heart or spell out the words hope, love, fe, which is faith in Spanish, they are an attempt to spread some positivity during those challenging times. Another interesting installation is the Savage Beauty in Ireland, and Irish people are being asked to shine your light on Easter Saturday for those who are sick, have lost their lives or their loved ones, as well as for the frontline staff, the healthcare workers, and those who are keeping us going. This is supposed to be a video. Let's see if it's gonna work. Yes, I think so. So, in the West Prender Place in Vancouver, the light artist Tamar Frank created a special program as a tribute for the healthcare workers. She was told that in Vancouver, residents go out on their balconies and porches every evening at 7 to make noise for the healthcare workers. She wanted to respond on this public action, and the tribute program lights up every evening at 7 and starts with flickering lights scattered all over the building. And this is a visualization of the people inside the building reaching out to connect. And then this was followed by a synchronous clapping motion. And finally, the program ends with a heartbeat motion. I would also just like to mention here that this installation was already there. It was an artwork that the Tamar Frank had created, and she had to program this from the Netherlands, where I think that she is based, and sent this installation to Vancouver, sent this program to Vancouver, so to participate and respond on this public action, which is a very interesting example here, because again, is how we can create installations, art installations, lighting installations, that they can respond on events that are happening, and just not by only changing color, as they are mostly right now, Okay, let's see. Yes. Lastly, Istria country on May the 3rd, 2020, declared its victory over COVID-19, and the major roundabout in the city of Pula was illuminated in blue light, which is the symbolic color of the fights against the COVID-19 pandemic. Also, as an act of expressing gratitude to the healthcare services in Istria that helped the area to combat this infectious disease. So a few days before this installation, it was stated that there were no more patients diagnosed with COVID-19 in the Croatian country, which was declared a corona-free zone. So that was their way to again transmit the existing lighting of this roundabout in the city of Pula to celebrate the corona-free zone. Of course, there are many, many other examples. I thought to put a few together that are quite different and diverse in terms of the lighting characteristics that they are using, but I'm sure that there are many, many more. So, last part, the conclusion. So, can light transmit important messages that will remain memorable in people's minds? The answer is yes. Light under a certain context can be an attractive and impactful medium, suitable for raising awareness, communicating messages, and creating social engagement in the urban space. Light has its own unique communication style. It can transfer messages quickly and simply without raising linguistic, class, or racial barriers. Light is a non-verbal language which broadcasts meaning by using the city as a canvas. What can we, as lighting designers, do? Let's set an open dialogue between the government, the stakeholders, the organizations, the designers, the citizens, and generally everybody in order to work closely together and notice the communicative role of light from a social perspective. The most important thing in order to have a powerful impact is to unite. And as one of my favorite artists, Naziha Mestawi, said, if we all connect, we can have a huge impact. We all have the power to inspire our future. Thank you very, very much. I think this is the end of the presentation.
Katia, thank you so much for the deep look into your research, showing the different aspects, how you can work, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and the challenges, and coming up with a very good summarized conclusion. So what are your most favorite projects? You already mentioned the heartbeat at the Eiffel Tower. What are one or two other projects which you liked more, and for which reason?
I think something that I really like, even though it can definitely be improved in terms of the characteristics of the light, are all of those moments and events where the landmarks are changing into a color and symbolize a specific global occasion, global event. So, for example, the occasion with awareness for AIDS, awareness for cancer, awareness for autism. And the reason why I like those projects is because if they are communicated in the right way, which is, I think, where the gap is right now, if they are communicated in the right way, it's a moment where it's like a synchronized global movement where landmarks all over the world at the same time, at the same day, are turning in a particular color to celebrate, raise awareness, commemorate, So I think for me, as an action, as an idea, this is like a project that I really, really like. And I believe that we can definitely, as designers and as artists and as, putting our creative minds together to find ways to make this even more impactful and communicate it through even printed material, or create a combination, because right now it's not really communicated in the right way. You need to know that this is World Autism Day today to see an installation, to see a landmark in blue and understand that, yes, there is a connection here. You know what I mean? I think there is a missing gap at the moment.
I see. Another question would be, you're showing in your final slide here the image from the NASA about the night appearance, which is often used in the discussion about dark sky and light pollution. What do you think about the issue of light pollution when looking at some projects? Could this convert a message, for example, especially when we look to the installation where a mountain is illuminated and this does not look so sustainable regarding energy consumption and especially the light pollution aspect? What do you think about this aspect, going out for using light to communicate something and then having the side effect of creating light pollution?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you very much. So, of course, light pollution is there. Light pollution is caused by many different, not installations, but from the architecture, from the city, the urban lighting overall. So we do know that how light pollution has been increasing more and more. However, for this specific projects, for this specific occasion, when we are talking about temporary lighting installations, I think that we need to measure the impact. Of course, light pollution is a huge topic, and I'm a very big supporter of the dark skies and the organization of the dark skies. The thing though is that, we have to, in order to create impact, you can use light in a more, that's why also I mentioned that light is a sustainable way, as opposed to printed materials, banners, big plastic screens, and all of those different things. So for example, for the mountain that you just mentioned, I think that this mountain is never lit. So by using this mountain as a canvas to create a strong visual impact, I think it's okay to do it for one day, for one night. It's like we have to balance the different, the light pollution that the different installations are creating. For me, for example, it would be more important to start as designers, and not only designers, because of course we all know that there are many different people involved on this, but when we are designing the urban lighting or street lighting, everything, we have to really consider the lights to not be pointed to the sky, and many other parameters that are not for this lecture right now. But I think I'm answering your question, right? I think we have to balance impact or light pollution, how this is balanced. And of course, another thing that I would like to mention, we also had a look on this on the case study on the project with no light at all, which from the WWF, which obviously is just a symbolic,
of course,
project, because it just asked people to turn on off the non-essential lights for 1 hour. That's not enough. But the reason why it's happening is to raise awareness and actually make people think, oh, I should be turning off my non-essential lights more often because I'm protecting the planet. So that's
the final question would be, can you let me know what is your vision regarding light use as a medium for communication in urban spaces for the next 5 to 10 years? What kind of events may come up when you see the different trends which you described there, where they would culminate in?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question that I should think in more depth. So, well, I think, as I mentioned on the RECCE model, and that's also the reason why this part was developed after analyze this research and coming up to some conclusions. The reason why RECCE model was developed was exactly that, to think, okay, we have the tools, we have the creativity, we have the knowledge, we know the technology is always changing and getting even more advanced, and how we can use these tools and how we can adapt those tools, the existing lighting installations, to be able to create impactful messages, to communicate impactful messages. So what I would like to see in the future would be more collaboration, more projects that include engagement with the participants. So not just a building turning blue, but maybe how the people, the participants, maybe they can be using social media. Maybe this is already the case. There are projects like that people are using social media to tweet, to participate on different ways, and have an impact on the installation that they are the message is projected or whatever. But I would like just to see the tools coming together, the different experts coming together, how we could work with visual artists to use the media facades. There are already many media facades all over the world. Instead of projecting advertisements, how they could raise awareness about different topics as well, like art, like different messages, but like using the existing infrastructure. And lastly, as I mentioned, on my very favorite project with the One Heart, One Tree, this is a very good example of, yes, there is a lighting installation which drives energy, all of these things that we are talking about, but at the same time, they are creating a positive impact in the world by planting trees. So this is an action from virtual to real world, and I think this is a key. So could we create more of those different installations that we raise awareness and we bringing people together, we engage, we inspire people, but at the same time we are leaving behind something which can have positive impact for the environment or for the world overall. This is my wish, to come together and use all of our skill set and infrastructures.
Thank you very much. I just got a question from Carsten Voss. He says, lots of messages with light seems to be limited just to technical experts, to compare to printing, for example. Do you see this as a problem? So a good example he mentions is the low-tech example of the light action in Berlin. Can you explain the technology and the efforts needed for this kind of holographic demo in Madrid?
Thomas, can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I will just ask Carsten Voss. Would you like to address the question directly? I opened your microphone.
Yeah, thank you. I just had the question whether this kind of messaging with light is a bit, let's say, limited to technical experts. So you really must have some kind of expert knowledge to do this messaging. And I found this example of the WWF action in Berlin very interesting, because this is absolutely low-tech light messaging, whereas the other extreme was a holographic demonstration in Madrid. So, yeah.
That's a very good question. Thank you very much, Voss, for mentioning that. So, and this is the reason why I'm talking about collaboration, the engagement of of the public, of the experts, the visual artists, the lighting designers, the municipality, how we could do actually both. There are many installations, as we saw on the very first slide, where yeah, I don't know if I can actually go back, but where we had all the different examples that we picked for this research, and there were many low tech, and actually that's a very, very good point. And what I would say on that, I think it depends on the different contexts. For example, the last installation that we saw now from Tamar Frank with the programming for the coronavirus, obviously this one, it is a light art permanent installation in the building, and then the designer had to come up with a concept how to communicate this, the clapping and communicate the message that she wanted to communicate, and then transmit it to the experts. I guess I'm not completely aware about that. I hope I'm saying that in the right way. But give the concept, the programming to the experts, who they would be program the installation, and then do all the technical things. So yes, but I think that we have to have both. I think we need to have both type of installations, both the ones that are more technical, like even this one with the holographic. They didn't have another option to demonstrate, because if they were demonstrating, they would get a huge fine. And they found a way to make their statement by a complex way. If I'm right, I remember that they sent many videos to there was a team that was organizing this, and many people sent videos of themselves protesting, and then they created this whole artwork, and well, not artwork, but you know, like this whole program, and then they turned it into a holographic projection. So I think we have to do both. I understand the low tech point, and I think this is the one that brings people together to engage more. But if you remember also the second case study, where it was the project RECCE, which was just a video, it was a projection where people got encouraged to say their messages. What are you resisting for? Resist racism, resist terrorism, resist. So people were just interacting with this installation by stating what they resist. You know what I mean? So, like, there was a point of engagement and interaction between the participant and what it was projected in the building. So I would say again, a combination of highly technical installations with low tech, how they can work together and bring all the experts and the public, make it more, make light more, I'm missing the word, you know, more open to everyone to be involved, to everyone to use it and create impact.
Yeah, make it more democratic, maybe. Yeah.
More democratic, exactly, that was the word, thank you. Yes.
So there's another question. What do you think about the Night of Light 2020 as a recent example? So this is an action in Germany, which we discussed a few days ago.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about this kind of campaign from the event industry to raise awareness for their economic situation?
Yeah, I think that was great. That was a very, very, very good example of what we are talking about. For me, again, critically, I would like to say about the color as well. Like, when I saw it initially, the first thing that I thought, red. Okay, when are they using red? They're using red for awareness for AIDS. They're using red for Valentine's Day. You know, the same color is using for many different occasions. So initially, I first thought, why did they pick red to transmit this message? And again, this is going to the color chapter, when in the discussion, when we firstly talk about color, and we saw the 5, I think, different examples of using blue color for completely different occasions. So I think that this event, all of those events are great because they, and especially with social media and how I saw they had also a video spot, a video where they were communicating and encouraging people to go out and see that and see the movement. There is still missing a link with this. Why do you pick this color? How do you pick this color? Why are you using a similar color that is used in a different occasion? How this is communicated? Yes, this is my opinion. This is my perspective. But I definitely, I'm very, very happy that I see more and more installations happening, because when we started this research in 2017, there were many occasions, but we weren't really finding so many examples every, well, I'm not going to say every day, but very, very often. Now, more and more, they're using light to make an impact for different occasions. I don't know, do you agree, Thomas, with that?
Yeah, from my perspective, regarding the Night of Light 2020, the recent event here in Germany, I think red is something like a traffic light. It's a stop sign. All the events stop, the theater, and it's an alarming signal, like a traffic lights, please stop.
True.
And I think it's symbolizing this, but you're right, there's so many different meanings. It's used for communism, social aspects, social parties uses. So it's kind of critical to think about and to communicate this in the right way, that all the public press channels get the message right before they have misunderstanding thinking about Valentine's Days or similar events.
And another point here with the color, because I have been thinking a lot how, okay, this is the case. I don't know, as I asked you, as I mentioned before in the presentation, I don't really know who decides the global colors. Obviously, some, they make sense. Green for the environment, yes, okay. But why this specific tone? RGB lights can have many, many different color lights, you know, like different tones. So even, for example, with this one example with the red, maybe, what about if we could have, well, not a book, but like some guidelines of specific colors that RGB light can produce. So for dark red for AIDS, light red for Valentine's Day. And then when you want to communicate a new message, like this one, specifically the project that you are saying in Germany, you can, as the organizer, whoever came up with the concept, you go there in the list and you check, oh, this color hasn't been used. This red tone hasn't been used. I will submit my message for it. You know what I mean? Like to structure it a little bit more, or to work closely together with the traditional media and communicate the message beforehand and understand, so people will understand when they are going to be crossing the street and look at this, oh, this is because the events industry has sat down, and you know, all of this. I think that's my point in terms of the color light.
Okay, thank you very much, Katia. It was great to have you here within the lighting course for your digital guest lecture at the University of Wuppertal. Thank you, and all the best for your future career and your platform, Archivos.